Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Paul Dottino and Matt Citak with you for the next hour to talk Giants football and any other assorted NFL nuggets that you might have. Our phone number is 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. You can find us on social media at #GiantsChat. As always, we are streaming live as well on the New York Giants YouTube page. And you can also leave comments and questions there as well. Johnny Mac will alert us to those. And if you're not listening to the show live, our entire podcast network is available on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. And we come to you from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Matt, it is post-Super Bowl week.
Yes.
John and I spoke about this yesterday. Things just have a little bit of a lull as things settle after the big game. We did talk about the big game somewhat yesterday, not only in terms of what we saw, but also how it potentially could relate to the Giants and some things that we've noticed about the last two Super Bowls that certainly warrant mentioning in terms of what it takes to be a playoff team and a contender. I thought it was appropriate if we ask you for maybe a couple of thoughts as to what you took away from the game.
Yeah, for starters, what a snooze fest. That was not an exciting game. I know, obviously not, going out on a limb saying that, but boy, I mean, I guess a little bit of action in the fourth quarter, but up until then, that was so boring. But hey, I mean, Seahawks fans certainly are not complaining. So
how about this? There was nothing super about the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It did remind me more of like a second preseason game than anything else.
Seriously. I will say it was nice to see a couple of former Giants come out as Super Bowl champions. Obviously, Julian Love had the big play with the interception. Leonard Williams, as he's been doing basically since he got to Seattle, just getting nonstop pressure on the quarterback, on Drake May. Drew Lock didn't get see the field, but Drew Lock is now a Super Bowl champion.
Yes, he is. Good guy, by the way. We got to know him. He's a really good dude.
I believe that's it for former Giants on the Seahawks. And obviously,
Yes.
Tommy DeVito is on the other sideline. Again, didn't even sniff the field. But, I don't really have many.
Corey Durden, too.
There you go. Real key contributor to the Giants' success right
Not
there.
so much, but he was for the Pats this year.
That's true. I don't really have many takeaways from that game other than obviously we've seen the last 2 years what a very strong defense can do. I mean, the Seahawks built this whole Super Bowl run. Nothing against or taking away from what Sam Darnold did, because I think what he did this entire season, remarkable considering how the first, 5-6 years of his career went. Obviously, he turned things around last year in Minnesota, played similarly well this year in Seattle. He wasn't obviously like a MVP caliber quarterback, but did certainly more than enough to help the Seahawks get to the Super Bowl and then win the Super Bowl. But really, it was the defense that carried the Seahawks throughout the season, and especially on Sunday against the Patriots. I mean, I know Drake May did not have the best playoff run, and that's putting it nicely because it was statistically among the worst playoff stretches we've seen from any quarterback. But they just made him feel so uncomfortable throughout the entire game. Obviously, the big thing about Darnold his whole career that he maybe now can finally get away from is the whole seeing ghosts thing. Well, Drake May looked like he was seeing ghosts all game against that Seattle pass rush. They were just getting after him nonstop. And, we've been talking a lot the last however many months about how the hope for the 2026 Giants will mimic that of the 2025 Patriots in terms of the jump that they made with the young quarterback going into year 2 with the new head coach, young talent around the team. All of that still remains true, but I would say let's not forget, let's also try to take maybe what the Seahawks did on defense and try to bring some of that over here, because it's going to take, big steps on both sides of the ball and special teams, all three, in order for the Giants, and I'm not saying to make the Super Bowl next year, but just to take that next step, get the team trending in the right direction, because this is a team that's built around a pretty young core that the window to truly contend, is not even open yet. They're not even in that stretch yet. I think this upcoming season is where the Giants can take a big leap and then we'll see how much success the team actually has. But then moving forward, that could be, the true window to build around this young core, young quarterback, talented pieces, young pieces on both sides of the ball. So that is what I would kind of take from, I guess, both sides of the Super Bowl matchup we saw on Sunday.
There were two things that John and I discussed, and we talked about it early in the show, and then we kind of came around full circle near the end of the program because we got people, again, they're asking us about the pick at number 5, which, again, folks, there's a lot.
Hot topic.
There is a lot to do before that, including free agency. So, I'm already really tired of hearing questions about who they're going to take at 5. I mean, come on. Let's just get real.
2.5 more months of it.
Let's try to at least build 3/4 of Mount Everest before we try to crown the summit. All right. There's a lot to go. I hear that question one more time. I'm just done.
Paul, I can guarantee you're going to hear it about 1,000 more times.
I know. And it's just dumb.
Look, right now, talking about the draft is just nothing more kind of than, I'm not going to say pure speculation, but it's more speculation than I would say like educated guesses because, as you mentioned, there's still so much to do. Free agency, which will obviously play such a big role.
It's worthless conversation. It really is.
I would say you can have like the broad field of candidates who could be the 5th overall pick now. And then once we get through free agency, that broad list will be cut down probably pretty significantly where we'll have an idea of a handful of prospects that could be.
Well, the combine's going to have an impact on that too. That's why you got combines, you got pro days, and you got free agency. 3 things that could throw an entirely different complexion on anything that you want to talk about with that 5th pick.
Not to mention visits, top 30 visits, where the teams can actually get the prospects into the building.
Throw that one on too.
Meet with them all day.
Okay, so make it 3.5 things that could have a significant alteration on that question. So it's just a very useless question to ask right now. All right, but in theory, there are some broad philosophical things that are worth talking about. And John and I did discuss this. The last 2 Super Bowls proved beyond a shadow of a doubt to anybody who refused to believe it beforehand that you have to have a functional offensive line to have a chance to be a champion.
Of course.
And you absolutely have to have a very rugged defensive front to be a champion. Both of those things are incredibly necessary because if you only have one, well, guess what? You're kind of teetering. For example, Patriots had a really good defense. Really good defense. Their front, not as rugged as Seattle's front, but a really good front anyway. But they didn't have the offensive line, and they paid for it. Seattle had an outstanding defense and a very rugged front and a functional offensive line. Not great, but functional.
It's good enough.
That was enough to get the trophy. Okay, so the last 2 Super Bowls have just hammered that point home for anyone who still didn't believe those facts.
Yeah, and honestly, the same characteristics you just used to describe the Seahawks and Patriots, same exact ones can go a year earlier with the Eagles and the Chiefs.
That's my point. The last 2 Super Bowls.
The Chiefs, great defense.
Last 2.
Offensive line, which has been an issue for them somehow for a couple of years now, despite having Patrick Mahomes. Same exact issues. The Eagles' defensive front just had their way with that Chiefs offensive line in the Super Bowl. And obviously, while the Eagles offensive line this past season took a bit of a step back, that offensive line in 2024 was probably the best in the league, top 3 at worst. And they cruised pretty easily to a Super Bowl championship because of it. So yeah, I hear you. I mean,
all right.
We praised the Seahawks last year, at least I did, when they took Gray Zabel. That was a guy that I think a lot of us would have loved some way for the Giants to get him. Obviously, I don't think anyone regrets the Giants' 2 first-round picks last year, and I don't think anyone's upset about Abdul Carter or Jackson Dart currently being New York Giants, and that there's no other way to get Gray Zabel here, but that was a great pick, and we praised Seattle for that pick at the time. And he ended up playing such a huge role in the Seahawks offensive line turning it around this year.
All right, so here was the discussion that we had toward the end of the show yesterday. And I give this to you because it does connect to what we have now proven to be true over the last 2 Super Bowls. If you're the Giants and you're trying to figure out the best athlete available in conjunction with the second half of the equation of need, philosophically speaking, how much does Downs lose in this equation? Because he's not part of a defensive front and he is not part of a functional offensive line. He is part of a secondary. John and I both believe there is a very real chance and a very good chance he becomes a Pro Bowl safety and an impact player in the National Football League, much like Kyle Hamilton, perhaps.
Yep.
Okay, we believe in him wholeheartedly. He's one of the top 5 players in this draft. All around, I don't think anyone would fight you on that. But he does not fit the mold or the model of the line of scrimmage. How much would that make you hesitate and push you into going somewhere else if he were to be sitting there? And that's more of a philosophical question than it is who are you going to pick at 5.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to the whole, argument or conversation everyone across the league has basically every year with positional value. In the
positional value involves salary cap also, and how much money you have to pay for free agents and how much money certain positions
they're
get.
They're tied to each other.
This isn't a salary cap question or an economy question. No, the positional value thing is more of a salary cap issue than it is a positional philosophical schematic issue. We're talking schematics now.
No,
how do you feel? How do you feel about drafting a non-scrimmage player?
I don't think you can talk about one without talking about the other, though, because as we've mentioned all the time, building a team is putting a million pieces of a puzzle together, and
the spider web is large. I agree, but
there are certain positions that make more money on the free agent market than others. So I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying, I don't think you can just say throw the positional value or
I'm asking you if you're a football coach, not a general manager. You're a football coach from X's and O's philosophical perspectives, not from a GM's perspective.
Okay. I think normally I would say no, not worth it, not worth the 5th pick. But Caleb Downs just seems to be such a special talent that I would consider it for sure, despite his position, despite obviously safety not being a need for the Giants necessarily. And, everything you just mentioned about not being at the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. But in terms of the Giants, at least, as of right now, the way that the roster is currently constructed, I would say that at least in terms of edge rushers, the Giants are in good shape. Mm-hmm. That if everything, stands how it currently is, I don't think an edge rusher will be the pick at 5. Just because you already have 3 very talented ones. You just used the 3rd overall pick in Abdul Carter last year. Kayvon's going into his 5th-year option, and obviously Brian Burns is on a big contract here. So I don't think an edge rusher is in the equation, and I don't think there's a defensive tackle that is nearly good enough to be in consideration for the 5th overall pick. So then you turn to the other side of the line, and I think offensive tackle could firmly be in play at the 5th overall pick, depending on what happens in free agency. If Jermaine Illuminor, if tomorrow it comes out or next week it comes out that Jermaine Illuminor is re-signing, then right tackle with the 5th overall pick is not something I think you're going to consider because you have your 2 tackles locked in.
You're far too far into the weeds to answer this question. That's the problem. You went very specifically with
I said from pure talent wise, I think he is worth the 5th pick. When John and I had this conversation, we were not talking about the Giants nor the 5th pick itself. Our philosophical conversation was about how do you feel when you're trying to build a contender or a championship caliber team? Same thing. How do you feel about using a high level draft pick on a guy who is not in the trenches? I'm not talking about the Giants per se. Okay.
That's not the question.
I think for any NFL team, if you have a chance to add one of the very few guys that are considered to be blue chip prospects in a draft, regardless of the position, that is something you have to strongly consider.
And that's fair. And that's the period. You answered it. No, because here's the thing.
I can't think of things without thinking it from the Giants' perspective.
Well,
though.
but
I've
no,
been here now too long.
Yeah, but sometimes it's better to step back and think about football philosophy, not Giants philosophy, football philosophy. Because if we talk about it from a Giants perspective, we'll be here for the next 3 hours talking about, well, if Illuminor leaves, now do you need another offensive lineman? Do you need a guard or do you need a tackle? You don't know what they're going to do with Marcus Bowe. You don't know what they're going to do at wide receiver because Wan'Dale Robinson may or may not be here. You don't know if Denard Wilson insists on using a 3-safety package. Well, guess what? You only have 2 safeties right now because Belton's a free agent, and you could make a case now that you got to get Downs, because he's going to use a 3-safety package on almost every play. Well, you know what? If Downs is going to be on the field every play, maybe there's value there. You see? I mean, we could go so deep into the woods if we talk Giants on this. This was more of a philosophical issue that we were trying to figure out. And I will be honest with you. Again, putting the Giants aside, I would probably be a little bit less inclined to draft the safety, as long as I had other places at other positions, and specifically if they were on the line, who had the appropriate grade.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's a football decision. That's not an economic decision. That's a football decision.
Do you think the Ravens regret taking Kyle Hamilton a couple years ago? Granted, it was 14, not
big
5.
Big
it is a big difference, 100%.
Big difference.
100%. But that still, was considered kind of early for a safety.
I know.
But he transformed their defense.
I would suspect that you have fewer players with the same grade at 5 than you do at 14.
I agree with that.
So it's not as difficult a question to answer.
That's fair. But again, I think if you just have a chance to add an elite talent, pretty much regardless of position, I'm not saying you have to do it, but you have to at least consider it. And
that goes back to George Young, right? Best player available.
Yeah.
BPA.
And I'm just going to bring up this one YouTube comment just because it's on this topic.
Sure.
Trackstar82 says, or asks, who has the bigger gap in talent in regards to the position, Caleb Downs or Carnell Tate? Does Downs have a bigger talent gap compared to the next safety versus the same for Tate? And I would say not even close. The gap between Caleb Downs and I don't even know who the second top safety is. It is significantly larger than the gap between Carnell Tate and the next wide receiver, because there are some people that don't even have Carnell Tate as the number 1 wide receiver.
There are 3 different receivers who are getting some ink.
Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon. Right now, it is up in the air which of those 3 ends up being the first wide receiver taken. It's going to be, I feel like we say this every year, but sort of like which flavor do you like? Because they're not exactly the same type of wide receiver. But in terms of the safety position, it's Caleb. I would say even just defensive backs. You want to even lump the cornerbacks in there. And there are some very good cornerbacks that will be drafted early in this draft. Mansour Delane, one of them. The gap between Caleb Downs and any other defensive back is larger than whoever you want to put at the top wide receiver versus the second wide receiver. And I don't think it's even close.
No, I totally agree with you. In fact, what we talked about yesterday was that Downs probably has a significantly better chance of being a Pro Bowl player than Tate does. To be honest, his upside is probably higher.
For sure. And I mean, just given the depth of talent at that position around the league that's already established in the NFL, wide receivers. I mean, obviously, some of the best players in the NFL are wide receivers. Not too many safeties get to enter that conversation, even best defensive players. It's not often that a safety enters that conversation. Obviously, Caleb Downs hasn't even been drafted into the NFL yet, played a single down in the NFL. But if you told me, within 3 years he was an all-pro safety, I would not be surprised in the slightest bit. If you told me the same thing for any of these 3 wide receivers, just, again, compared to the other wide receivers that are already established in the NFL, that I would be more surprised about.
Now, you'll remember there was quite a wide range of opinions, and these are not the same players, but in terms of the situation and circumstances, when Odunze, Neighbors, and Harrison were the 3 wide receivers in the draft, and when we were at the Combine, you could find, just go through the crowd, you could find someone who says Odunze, someone who said Harrison, somebody who said Neighbors. Be my number 1 guy.
I feel like for the most people, though, had Marvin Harrison number 1. Not everyone. I know not everyone, but most. I would say the consensus was
and I think
Marvin
most people
Harris
think
won,
Tate this year, too.
But then 2 versus 3 was definitely a debate. I mean, I think...
Point is, there was no unanimous vote for any of them. And I think that's what we have right now with these three receivers. Yeah, I don't think there's any unanimous vote.
Yeah, as you said, I think right now Carnell Tate would be the favorite to be the first one taken.
I suspect as much too.
2-3 weeks from now, once we get through the week in Indianapolis, that could change completely. He could be number 3 out of those 3. If Mekhi Lemon, and we don't even know which, the NFL just released today the list of prospects invited to Indy. Most of the time when it comes to the very top prospects, they don't tend to participate in any events at the combine. So it's kind of hard to imagine if all 3 of those wide receivers opt out, then I don't know in terms of who can move up or down after the week of Indy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe more, wait till the pro days, wait till we start hearing some reports about top 30 visits of those guys. Hopefully we see them on the field in Indy, because what they do in those workouts. I know it's what is it called? The Underwear Olympics, but
Underwear Olympics.
Despite that, the guys that do end up going out there and performing well, it can only help your draft stock. It can't hurt it.
All right, let's go to the phones, and let's get our first phone call up here on the program, and it's Dennis in Albany. You are number 1 on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello. Dennis. Did we lose Dennis? Let's try Ryan in Illinois. Ryan, you're first on the program.
Hi, guys. How are you today?
We're well. How are you?
Good.
I'm very good. I thought I'd add to the philosophical conversation. You're right. Obviously, the players themselves, we have no idea how this coaching staff and Harbaugh will like them, so it's not even really worth mentioning too deeply. But in terms of how safety is valued right now in the NFL, I actually want to point to the Super Bowl as a means to maybe up the interest of teams towards safeties, because Eamon Wari of the Seahawks was a missile flying around and helping the team. And I don't wonder if maybe it'll shift towards that, where safeties will maybe start to get a little bit more interest. What do you guys think of that?
I thought the best player on the field was Christian Gonzalez, the Patriots corner. He was the best player on the field for either team. But obviously, he could not be the game's MVP for clear,
couldn't play all 22 positions.
No, he couldn't. Eamon Wari played well. I don't think there's any doubt. But the story of the game was truly the line of scrimmage, and how, to be frank, I felt bad for May. I really did. I don't think he had much of a chance. I mean, that offensive line was horrific, much like the Kansas City line was the year before for Mahomes. They gave him no chance.
I'm sure you saw the stat, but Will Campbell allowed 14 total pressures in the Super Bowl, and that was the most that any offensive lineman allowed in a single game all season.
Oh, my goodness.
Came in the Super Bowl. Now, it did just come out yesterday or 2 days ago that apparently he's been playing through like a fully torn ACL, but some torn ligament that clearly has been affecting his game, because he's really, it wasn't just this past Sunday. He's been struggling for a little while now after a very strong start. But yeah, I don't want to put all the blame on just one offensive lineman, because as we know, it's 5 guys together. It's a unit. But boy, that line just gave Drake May absolutely no chance to do anything on Sunday against what we know and have said, very, very talented defensive front.
Bigger picture, Ryan. I can't tell you the last time anybody said to me in a Super Bowl that, my God, that safety should have been in contention for the Super Bowl MVP. I can't even think about one, honestly.
And he was playing through an injury. Got hurt in practice last week.
But again, there's been 60 Super Bowls, and I don't know that a safety's ever been in the top 3 vote getters for Super Bowl MVP. I don't think it's ever
announced the actual votes.
I don't
Super
think
Bowl
they
MVP?
do.
They just announced the winner, right?
I don't think they do.
I don't remember ever seeing that.
But in any event, I don't ever think there was a question that a guy was ever in contention as a safety. So that's just, again, it's all part of the football philosophy that we sometimes like to talk about on this program when we are in the dark days of the calendar and don't know what else to discuss.
Might I add something, Paul?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Something I'm thinking about, though, is I feel like Eamon was on the field a lot, and maybe he was a little bit of an unsung hero. I'm just thinking about how, like, the chess game of the offensive coordinator using big personnel, and if you don't have to switch out of that, that can be a benefit. I thought I heard an announcer talking about, they'd put in 2 tight end sets. And because they were duplicitous enough on the back end, they could guard the run just fine and still not give up, a defender in the backfield so that they'd get single coverage. So I feel like if you can play that chess game, maybe that's a way that the value of a really ultra-talented safety like Downs, maybe if he's moved around the field, played like a chess piece, I don't know, maybe that could increase the value too.
You just gave the headline reason to play a 3 safety package. That's the number one reason to do it. Every coordinator will tell you that. If they feel so inclined that they want to be able to hold up without changing personnel and with the ability to handle a double tight end set and to still deal with a strong running game, I'm going to go 3 safety. Look, the Giants, if you remember, the Giants did that with Deion Grant, when they won their second Super Bowl. They did that. That was Perry Fewell's method. He goes, I'm going to go 3 safeties. And that's when we started to see a preponderance of 3 safety packages filter into the league. And that is the reason to do it. Look, I just talked to Dave McGinnis, long time, with guys of 70 years between college and pro football. I talked to him for another show that I'll be doing tonight. And Dave is the Titans radio analyst, and he's worked with Denard Wilson before and obviously knows him because he was the Titans defensive coordinator the last couple of years. And he said, Wilson likes to use the 3 safety package because he doesn't want to get into substitutions. He wants to be able to have versatility with the 3 safety package and not have to come out and substitute. He prefers that. Not every defensive coordinator wants to play that way. So this is all part of what you said when you first came on. And that comes down to, we haven't talked to Wilson. We would love to talk to Denard Wilson if, in fact, he's the Giants' defensive coordinator. We would love to talk to him, but we haven't done that yet, and we don't know how strongly he feels about this. Again, Coach McGinnis told me he wanted to do that as much as he could in Tennessee, but the Titans didn't necessarily have the personnel for him to be able to use it as much as he wanted to.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that the coaching staff is not official yet. So if the reports are true,
that's why
Denard Wilson,
we don't know,
defensive coordinator, then we'll have to ask him if it is true. But again, just to reiterate, nothing is official yet,
and that's got to be part of the equation. So, appreciate the call, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Zach in Birmingham is next on the program.
Binghamton.
Hello, Binghamton. Yes,
hello.
Binghamton. How
Hello,
are you?
How are you guys doing?
That's where the old Broome County Arena is, right? The Veterans Arena?
Yes, sir.
Where the minor league
that's where it
Rangers
is.
used to play many years ago.
Yeah. So I'm calling in today because I think we can definitely improve our O-line without question, and I think we should do it in the draft. I hear Downs is great and all, but let's be real. We have the highest paid defense in the league. We need to stop spending money. We need to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. We need to use that to get another late first-round pick. If we need to sweeten the deal, throw in a third, a fourth, whatever. We need to get young. We need to stop spending money where we don't need to.
Okay. You
Real
realize
quick, the Giants
go ahead.
do not currently have a third-round pick because it was used in last year's trade for Jackson Dart.
Okay, well, we could sweeten it with like a fourth, maybe a fourth and a sixth.
And I'm just to add as well about Kayvon. I think Kayvon is a very talented player. He's shown flashes
Agreed.
of, very strong play, but I don't know if he's fetching you a first-round pick in a trade. Even if you sweeten it with a day 3 pick, I think that might be still a little too rich. So I would just say
that may be true, but even then, still, if we get like second, you can always upgrade from there. Because it's not breaking news. Nobody knows for sure, but let's be real. We're getting Tyler Lindenbaum. We're going to get rid of all these extra dead cap hits. We're not going to be paying Bobby Okereke an extra $8 million for no reason. We're going to load up Tyler Lindenbaum. We're about to have one of the best O-lines in the league.
Okay.
I mean, sign me up for one of the best offensive lines in the league. I don't care how you get there. Sign me up for that.
Of course.
baby, the Harbaugh way.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach. The only thing I'll add is, like, I understand there are obviously some players that right now are candidates to maybe get either released to save cap money or, contracts restructured. But for guys that end up, if they do decide to, cut a couple of players in order to save some money in the salary cap, that cutting guys means creating more holes that you need to then fill in your starting lineup. So I would just say be a little careful saying, we need to cut players X, Y, and Z, because all of a sudden positions of X, Y, and Z now become needs. So I just say to just be a little careful before you say, let's go cut half the roster.
Salary cap casualties basically are like one step up, two steps back, because you'll help your business side of things, but you'll hurt your X's and O's football side of things. That's just the way it goes.
That's why you got to balance it.
Hence
whether the cap savings are worth the position hole that you're creating.
Exactly why a football guy like me can't stand the salary cap and the whole free agency concept and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Never liked it. Never will. Stupid antitrust violation. Change the rules and just change the way this game has to be conducted, which is a shame, because football coaches like to be able to make decisions on players based on what they do on the field, not based on that piece of paper that they signed last week.
As we mention all the time and mentioned earlier, it is all pieces of a puzzle.
It is.
It's the on-the-field stuff and the off-the-field stuff, which is why you need to have good collaboration between your front office and your coaching staff.
No doubt. Makes things a lot harder, though. That's for sure. Special Olympics, New Jersey's annual Snow Bowl is heading to Rutgers SHI Stadium this year. The annual flag football tournament will be on the field from March 6th through the 8th. The 6-on-6 tournament will feature competitive, recreational, and co-ed divisions, and all proceeds benefit thousands of Special Olympics New Jersey athletes across the Garden State. Register your team today at njsnowbowl.org. That's njsnowbowl.org. Matt, if you can give us an update this week on what's coming up with the huddle or what is currently up, that would be cool. I know John is efforting to tape something this afternoon, I believe with Gary Myers, a longtime NFL writer and author. But is there anything else?
So there are no new huddles yet this week. I think John had mentioned to me last week that they were going to maybe go a little quiet on the huddle front.
He did mention that yesterday.
The gear up.
I just didn't know if you had something in storage.
Well, we did post the latest draft season. John and Tony talking about players that have first round grades.
Tony Pauline, by the way.
Tony Pauline. Yep. The two of them host draft season once or twice a week on Giants.com. I don't know. Other than, there are some inside the film rooms that we posted recently in the last week. A lot of the rookie class from last year. Those will continue to go over the next couple of weeks, maybe even a couple months. But for now, that is it on the podcast front.
All right. Looking for more than just a ticket? Elevate Experiences delivers VIP access to the world's biggest events, from the Super Bowl to NASCAR to PGA Tour tournaments. Don't just attend. Elevate the experience at elevateexperiences.com. Yeah, the Combine's going to be here before we know it. Heck, it's
2 weeks from now, or it'll be in Indy.
How in the world did that happen, by the way?
We talk about it every year. There's no off season. Not for us, at least. For the fans, yes. But for us, there's no off season.
It did breeze by really, really, really quickly. I will tell you this. Again, the Giants, although they have not officially announced their entire coaching staff yet, we believe that, at least we've been led to believe, that they will do so once they get everybody in place. They'll kind of do it all in one shot instead of doing it piecemeal. In the meantime, as you probably know, and NFL Network, I believe Mike Garafolo this morning did mention that Brian Callahan, the former head coach of the Tennessee Titans, according to Mike, he had been requested for an interview as potentially the Giants' quarterback coach. I guess that was yesterday. Him and Ian Rappaport, I believe, had posted that. Since then, Mike has posted this morning that he believes that Callahan will be getting the Giants' quarterback coaching job. Now, I think that's an interesting hire, because this is a guy who, from being a head coach, now comes down not to just being a coordinator, but comes down to QB coach. Interesting in that that's quite a jump, but let's talk about him for just a moment. And, again, we're strictly going off of this report, so I don't want to go too deep on this. But think of the quarterbacks. He's been an offensive assistant in this league for a lot of years before he got to be head coach, whether it was a coordinator or a quarterback's coach or just an offensive assistant. He's had all those different positions. But think of the guys that he has worked with. He's worked with Derek Carr with the Raiders. He's worked with Joe Burrow with the Bengals. He worked with
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning with Denver. He worked with Andy Dalton with the Bengals. This is a guy who has had
Matthew Stafford.
Right, Matthew Stafford with the Lions. He has had quite a list of successful quarterbacks in his background. And so, as surprising as it might be that a former head coach is taking a quarterback coach's job, the truth of the matter is his resume is absolutely loaded, and I mean loaded, with high-quality quarterbacks.
100%. Like, I think for him especially, you got to look past just his record as a head coach with the Titans because...
Well, that's not what he's being asked to do here either.
No, not even close.
If he is coming.
Yes, if the reports happen to be true. But obviously, as a head coach, it didn't go so well during his time in Tennessee. But as you mentioned, he had a ton of success across the board prior to that stint as a head coach. I think if these reports are true, and I know this has been, I'm not the first one to say this, but man, you just look up and down, especially the reported list of offensive coaches on the staff. There is just so much experience there. Mm-hmm. So much experience. You have former head coaches, former offensive coordinators, play callers, and you have multiple of those. I mean, between Matt Nagy, now Brian Callahan, who else has been reported? Greg Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Those three alone, those all have experience as, running offenses.
It's a lot of years.
A lot of years. So I think it's just a good collection of experienced coaches because if you look up and down the Giants roster, again, at least on the offensive side of the ball, your best players, most of them are on the younger side between Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo, Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson. Obviously, the offensive line, a little different, but at least in terms of your quarterback and your playmakers are all young. So I think having as much experienced coaches on the staff as possible is just going to help those guys grow and develop as they're still in their early parts of their careers.
I think, what I'm curious about as the Giants, collect all these guys together and they finally get their staff totally embedded in the cement. I really want to know what these guys think about the guys who are left over on the roster, because they got to do those evaluations. They got to look at the tape and they got to say, "Hey, John," when they not Harbaugh, not Schmelk, okay? They got to say, "John, this is what I'm seeing from the room. You gave me this room. This is what I'm seeing. Look at this tape. I like this or I don't like this." And, we believe, again, according to the reports, that there were 3 holdovers. Kelly,
yes,
Bullen, and Hall.
Yes.
Right? We think that there were 3 holdovers. Again, we're not sure. That's not a lot. Okay? From a coaching staff that's upwards of 20. So, there's a lot of different eyes looking at this tape. And that's going to have a significant impact in how the Giants decide to move forward with their offseason roster moves.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to what you were saying about how it's too early to talk about the draft. Well, kind of the same thing with how the whole roster might be constructed going into 2026 because, like you just said, we have no idea how any of this coaching staff thinks of the current roster.
None.
I mean, we've heard Coach Harbaugh talk about Jackson. That's kind of it.
We think he likes the quarterback.
Yes. and he had that quarterback, Jameis, too.
Yes.
So I guess the quarterback room, at least those two at the top of the quarterback depth chart, Coach is pretty happy with. But the rest of the roster, we don't really know how anyone on the coaching staff feels about them. We can have guesses, but until the coaching staff is finalized and made official and we get a chance to hear from just about any of the coaches, we don't really know for sure. So we can speculate and guess how we think certain things, the parts of the roster might be constructed, but until we hear from these coaches, we don't really actually know what they're thinking in the slightest bit.
Not at all. Not at all. And speaking of the roster, Eric Edholm of NFL.com released his post-Super Bowl power rankings. Just came out, I believe, in the last 24 hours. He does have the Giants as the 28th rated roster as it stands today in the National Football League and last in the NFC East, by the way, not in the NFC overall. He does have the Cardinals behind the Giants. Also the Raiders, Cleveland, and the Jets as the lowest teams on his rankings. But again, this comes with that big asterisk of we just don't know who the players are going to be on this team. They got a bunch of key spots. He says the addition of John Harbaugh gives the Giants a boost in the gravitas department, even if it's not a guarantee that they'll return to postseason right away. He's loving Jackson Dart. He says here, you got to worry about the free agents with Robinson, Illuminor, and Flott. Says there's limited salary cap space, so you don't know exactly what the Giants are going to be able to do. He does say, knowing Harbaugh's history, he's likely to prioritize upgrading both lines of scrimmage, which is certainly an interesting thing to talk about because we all know that in addition to the lines of scrimmage, you could make a very strong case, and we saw this too. Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago and Drake May this past year did not have a good enough wide receiver core. And no matter how dynamic you think your quarterback is, yes, he absolutely needs an offensive line to be functional, but he also needs weapons.
For sure. I mean, I don't think anything Edholm put there is that surprising because right now the whole right side of the offensive line is set to hit free agency between Illuminor, which obviously we've talked about, and Greg Van Roten. And the only real possible replacement behind him would be Marcus Bowe.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, similar to how we don't know what the coaching staff's thinking, we don't know if the coaching staff sees Bowe more as a tackle or as a guard.
We don't.
That was a question that we know this past year what the coaching staff thought. They obviously had him playing pretty much exclusively at tackle.
Right.
But we don't know what the new coaching staff's where they think he's going to fit best. And we don't know if they think he's, ready to start competing for one of those starting two spots on the offensive line or if he needs more time to develop. So for sure, I don't think it's going out of the stretch saying the Giants will look to improve the offensive line and make upgrades there because right now you only have 3 potential starters. So that one is, I feel like, pretty obvious. And then on terms of the defensive side of the ball, same kind of thing except a defensive tackle. I mean, I think an edge rusher right now with how the roster is currently constructed, you feel pretty good about the group. But
right
next to Dexter Lawrence, you kind of have more question marks. And that's been a whole a part of the defensive roster that has been, I don't want to say a hole, but a question mark for a couple of years now. Finding someone, since Leonard Williams left, finding someone to play next to Dexter Lawrence. Of course, Darius Alexander was the 3rd-round pick last year. He got
to step up.
He showed flashes, but
got to step up.
Did he show enough where the coaching staff is going to come in and be like, you're starting next to Dexter? I don't think he showed enough last year.
What does this defensive coaching staff think of Chauncey Golston?
Yeah.
Who, by the way, last year was kind of a washout because of all the injuries. He never got a chance to really do what the Giants needed him to do.
For sure. So that's why I'm just saying I don't think it's surprising at all for Edholm to say Harbaugh is going to look to improve both sides of the line of scrimmage because those are pretty big needs right now with how before we get to free agency, before anyone's re-signed, like it's just purely like it's a fact that those are holes that need to be filled. So that's not surprising. But yeah, I do think because Wan'Dale Robinson is about to hit free agency, if he's brought back, then I think adding another premier pass catcher is not as important, but you still want to add more depth to that room. So maybe if Wan'Dale is re-signed, maybe the Giants don't look for a wide receiver at the 5th pick, but maybe at, 37 or the start of the 4th round, then I would imagine they would want to add someone at some point or, a lower end free agent, take a chance on someone like that they can, sort of take a step from wherever they were last year and improve this year. But again, similar to every other position we've talked about, it all depends on what the Giants decide to do in free agency, which guys are brought back, if any. Maybe the Giants let all three of those top free agents go. Again, we just don't know what the coaching staff thinks of any of these guys. So
no, not at all.
It's a little tough to try to make these, real predictions. But then the last thing I'll say is, you mentioned that Eric Edelman has us at what number? 26?
28.
28. A lot of outlets have been putting out their, post-Super Bowl power rankings. And I've seen the Giants are pretty much in that area across the board.
Yeah.
Which all I'll say to that is good. Let all these outlets sleep on the Giants.
There's a lot of unknowns.
It's a lot of unknowns, but at the same time,
they're just going by what they saw was a 4-win team.
Which I don't blame them. Now on February 11th.
I get it.
It makes sense.
I get it.
At the very same time, ESPN this morning put out an article saying 2026 NFL predictions, some early predictions. And one of the questions they asked 11 different reporters, make one big prediction about this offseason or next season.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 11 analysts that were asked about it, 2 of them said the Giants will make the playoffs next year. And one of them went so far as to say the Giants will win the NFC East next year. So,
as in 26 or 27?
2026.
26?
In 2026.
And who are those guys?
Jeremy Fowler, who I think obviously we all know Jeremy Fowler. And then, let me just find this guy's for Aaron Schatz, NFL analyst for ESPN.
He's a analytics guy, I think.
Yeah. So
From
they
Football
both
Outsiders, I think, at one point.
I believe so.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Despite, while some outlets, and I even think on ESPN's power rankings, the Giants are in that, bottom 5 or 6 tier. But it's not all, I'm just putting this out there to say it's not all, doom and gloom, because the Giants do have a chance, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but a chance to take a very big step next season. And whether that results in a playoff berth remains to be seen. But I think it's fair to say and assume and think that as long as, they don't get ravaged by injuries, which we've seen happen in some of the previous seasons, this Giants team will take a step next year. How big? We'll have to wait to find out.
The receiver question is really a question and a half. It's not just Wan'Dale Robinson, but what's the health of Neighbors? It's really a question and a half. It's not just one.
That one might be more important.
I
don't think you can assume that he's going to come in week 1 and be the same Malik Neighbors as pre-injury.
I mean, you can't do that. You just can't do that.
You look at the best receivers in the league that have suffered the torn ACL. It takes some time to get the football feet underneath them and get back to the playing level they were at previously.
When we've seen a bunch of those over time here. I mean, Giants have had really bad luck with injuries, period, but especially with wide receivers. Talking about Victor Cruz, Akeem Nicks, Odell Beckham Jr., I mean, Steve Smith. I mean, ad infinitum, the amount of Giants injuries at wide receiver that have taken their first-rate guys to the sideline.
100%. And I'm not saying that Malik is never going to get back to his old self, because I do think he will get there. It's going to take some time. It's just the nature of recovering from a torn ACL. You don't step back on the field day one and immediately look like the guy you were before. However, we have seen plenty of guys come back, and after a little bit of time, come back bigger, faster, stronger than they were before.
Yeah, well, that's what they say with the ACL repair. That can happen.
100%. We've seen it several times across the league over the last couple of years.
Now, the other thing that Holmes says, and he wraps up by saying, and again, this all goes part of the influence of the staff and of Coach Harbaugh, because he says, and this is strictly based on Ravens history, not on Giants history, he says, the Ravens always aim to be one of the best trench teams in the NFL, and the Giants are a few key pieces, specifically a run stopper on defense and possibly 1 or 2 offensive linemen, shy of reaching that criteria.
Exactly what I just said.
That's the point, right? The Ravens' history and how Harbaugh did things there, how much is that going to translate here? We just don't know.
We don't know. We do not know, but I would say it's likely that, if John Harbaugh did something a certain way for 18 years in Baltimore, there's a good chance that coming over here, he's going to bring some of those things with him.
Well,
of those philosophies.
Does he tell the front office, you know what? I think Jermaine Illuminor is a good enough right tackle. We need to stretch the bank a little bit to try to keep him. Or does he say, you know what? I think he's just a guy. I need a better right tackle than him. And
in terms of specifics,
you know,
we don't know. I'm just saying more general philosophies. It's fair to assume that things he did for nearly 2 decades in Baltimore, he's probably going to come here and try to do the same thing.
He didn't get to 12 postseasons in 18 years by being a dummy.
Yeah.
Okay? The guy understands football 101. He knows that this game always starts in the trenches. Always. All right, let's go back to the phones and see who else we have on Big Blue Kickoff Live. I'm going down to the phones and see John from Florida. You're on the program. Hello.
Hey, how are you guys going?
Well, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm doing great. Question for you is the coaching, the rest of the coaching staff they're hiring, who's left? Do you know?
Nothing.
I'm totally lost.
Other than John Harbaugh being the head coach, nothing is official yet. Mm-hmm. So for our purposes, the entire coaching staff still needs to be filled out.
Correct. Officially, nobody has been hired except for John Harbaugh. Now, if you're referring to the national and local media reports that have come out over the past 3 weeks, the last 2 spots of the main position coaches that needed to be filled were the quarterback coach and the linebackers coach. However, there have been reports of those names being filled out in the last couple of days. And in addition to that, what we also don't know is, does Coach Harbaugh have assistant position coaches that he also wants to fill? We don't know that either.
We'll find out. We will find out soon enough. Well, look, it's not the first time a new Giants head coach has come in and said, I want to wait until we have the whole entire staff officially, signed under contract before we make any announcements. I believe Joe Judge did the same thing years ago.
He did.
Brian Dable, I believe we announced the coordinators first, and then the whole rest of the staff we announced as one once everything was official. So it's not that different from previous head coaches. I know, it's February 11th, and everyone's a little antsy, just wants it to be official so we can sort of check that off the list and move on with the offseason. It'll happen soon enough, but for now, this is how it is. Nothing is official other than John Harbaugh is the head coach.
Exactly. And if you look at the Giants website, you will see that mugshot of him. Yes. He's there and in good standing.
I appreciate you trying to straighten this thing out, because I'm hearing this thing. I hear a tight end coach has been hired. I hear a quarterback coach has been hired. It's crazy. Well,
let's put it this way. If anyone has, in fact, signed a contract to be part of his staff, the guys upstairs know it, and so do the league offices. So that's fine. If those people have been signed, they'll be here, and you don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to come to work in the morning, because those deals, if they've been signed, they're in stone.
Yeah, John, I'll tell you this. We're almost to the point where we're nearly a week away from Indy and the NFL Combine. It's not going to be too much longer before the coaching staff is announced. So just hang in there.
The whole list will be out by then for sure.
I hope so. Last thing, I would like to say thank you for being such a great, reporting on the Giants, because down in Florida you don't get anything on the Giants. only the local teams like Jags and the Tampa Bay and the Gators and all them are
and the Dolphins, I'm sure. Yeah,
and I'm just glad to come in here and listen to you guys. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Well,
you're very kind, and please call again another time. I wonder if he was a transplanted New Yorker. He didn't say.
He didn't say.
Could be.
He would be far from the only one. So.
No. Hey, I will say this. John, I don't know if you ever get a chance when you're down in Florida, when the Giants come down to play one of those teams, if you ever get a shot to go to one of those games, I could tell you firsthand, there's a lot of blue in those stadiums. When the Giants play down at Tampa, there's a sea of blue. When they play in Miami, there's a sea of blue. When they play Jacksonville, there's a bigger sea of blue. I mean, the Giants fans travel well, unless they've already migrated there, one or the other. Because, by the way, it's not such a bad idea to go to Florida to go see the Giants play in November and December if you're a New Yorker.
No, get out of the cold, go down to the warm Florida weather. Real quick before you get to the YouTube comments, I just saw this, and I didn't even know this was a thing, but apparently one of the rule proposal changes that is going to be voted on at some point during the offseason, expanding the amount of years into the future you can trade draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get your take on that. So it's been, you can only do up to 3 drafts moving forward.
Right.
And they're voting eventually on whether to make that up to 5, which I believe is still less than the NBA, but closer to the NBA.
I mean, the NBA is 6, isn't it?
It's got to be, because I know that there were 2031 draft picks traded.
It's crazy.
Last year.
Yeah, the NBA.
2025. So.
I don't know that I have a feeling about it either way, to be frank with you. I just know that I laugh my butt off when I see these NBA deals and they're talking about
middle school kids.
It's like, really? It's like, really? Like you said, you traded a 2031 second-round draft choice?
No exaggeration that kid is likely in middle school right now, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I just saw it pop on Twitter, so I wanted to ask. I don't see anything wrong with it. If you want to trade your pick 4 years from now, I mean, that's obviously a lot of risk because you have no idea. Things change so quickly in the NFL. You have no idea what sort of success you're going to have 4 years down the road. So it's definitely risky, but I don't see why anyone would be so opposed to it.
To me, it just becomes sloppy with the paperwork when you start trading picks that are like a millennium down the road. I mean, come on. All right, our YouTube comments. T-Tom13 says, this coaching staff is really looking very nice. Well, right now they're invisible. But when we do see them, I'm sure we will like what we see. T-Tom, let's see. Okay, that's his. T-Tom13 has another comment. 28th ranked roster. Who put that roster together? Eric Edholm with his power rankings for NFL.com. That was him.
I think he was saying who put the actual roster.
Oh, you mean in like reality?
I would think so.
Oh, well then obviously he's not a big Joe Shane fan. And that's okay. You don't have to be a big fan, right? Everybody.
And that's
can have
also
an opinion.
not pure roster rankings.
No, it's a power ranking based on the roster.
But point made.
X Vela X. We aren't actually that bad. The ranking system is not good. Line up our players side by side with more than 4 teams. We're better than 28. He also says thoughts on Slayton. Slayton's a very serviceable, steady, reliable, quality NFL wide receiver, but he's not exactly a guy you game plan around.
No, he's not going to be, a number one weapon or a guy that opposing defenses, as you just mentioned, come up with specific game plans to take him out of the game. But he's had enough consistent success during his time here where he has shown he can certainly be a solid contributor to an offense, a good offense.
Vince G18 says, is Bellinger a free agent? Yes, he is.
Yep.
You say, I always thought he was underutilized. I'm a big Bellinger fan. I do think they'll be able to bring him back at a friendly price. I don't think he's going to command huge numbers on the market.
No, but you never know, especially with, we've seen the last couple of years, guys that are more blocking tight ends that have shown at least some ability to catch the ball. Every offseason, there's at least one guy that out of nowhere gets a big contract from a new team. So you never know, but I will just add that Bellinger and Chris Manhertz are both free agents, which means right now there is Theo Johnson and Thomas Fidone, I believe, are the only 2 tight ends on the roster, which means, obviously,
That's
just
correct.
from a pure number standpoint, more bodies will have to be added before training camp.
And remember, as far as Harbaugh's time with the Ravens, he's never been shy about having a second tight end who can do multiple things.
No, I mean, the last couple of years, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely,
bingo,
that created havoc for opposing defenses trying to slow the 2 of them down.
However that mixture turns out to be in that room, Harbaugh's not going to downplay his tight end position. I guarantee you that. Vince G18 also says, I would like to see Wan'Dale return depending on the price tag. I think a lot of people feel that way. You say that you're in Tampa, Vince G18, and it's 50% Giants fans.
There you
go. Hey, there you go. Well, you live there. You would know more than I would. I only see them when we go down there to play. Avery Frederick, 5745, says, we need upgrades at the wide receiver position, receivers that actually get open and catch the ball regularly. I think we all believe that the receivers could be upgraded. That's not a comment out of left field either.
There's a reason why the consensus thought, or not consensus, but majority thought right now is that the Giants take a receiver at number 5 for that reason.
And then 11, Amani says, so I just saw a list of Kansas City wide receivers that will be free agents. Juju, Hollywood, and Thornton. Any of those guys sound attractive. I would suspect the Giants are probably more likely to draft someone than to spend money on a free agent. But on the back end, if they could get somebody economically friendly, that would not surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, just of those 3 names mentioned, I would say the most intriguing in my mind is Thornton as like a low-risk sort of roll-the-dice move because he's shown flashes of being a lethal downfield threat. I don't think he's going to command that much money. So, whether it's him, guys like that, I could certainly see the Giants taking a chance on a veteran or 2 in that mold.
T-Tom13 adds one other comment. I like Lloyd. Isn't he a free agent? And I'm not sure who he means.
Devin Lloyd?
You think that's who he means? Perhaps. He did not fully explain, but that's possible. Many years ago...
Devin Lloyd is about to hit free agency,
so
I'm assuming that's who he was talking about.
See, many years ago, the Giants did have a tight end named Dan Lloyd, who unfortunately came down with cancer and passed away. Really good guy and a good special teams player, too. All right. In any event, that will do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We thank all of you for joining us on the program today. As always, an archive of this show and our entire podcast network is available on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. As always, we have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. And Big Blue Kickoff Live has been presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We will be back again here tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with another live edition of the program. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll see you next time.